Corey Atkins. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and General Counsel for the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for taking the time today to view the videos that you're about to watch. We have set these interviews up with each of the 5 Asheville City Council candidates for 2020. The Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization, and by doing these videos, we're in no way endorsing any of the candidates. These videos and interviews are specifically for educational and informational purposes only. The open-ended questions and statements that you'll see during the lightning round are informed by our AVL Grader plan. You can find more details about what this plan entails at www.avlgrader.org. Thank you again for viewing this interview, and we hope you find this content informative and useful as you look to vote on November 3rd. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Corey Atkins, Vice President of Public Policy and General Counsel for the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce. Today we are joined, and first of all, thank you for watching this and the next series of our Asheville City Council candidate interviews. Today we're joined by the only incumbent who's running in this year's race in 2020, Keith Young. Councilman Young, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll get right into the questions, Keith. I appreciate you being here. The first question is going to be about growth in Asheville. So our AVL Grader visioning and strategic planning process taught us a lot about what's going to happen to Asheville and the entire Western North Carolina region in the next 20 years. For instance, by 2040, we know we're going to add 150,000 people to our area. So what is your plan and vision for how the city, which is of course is going to be the epicenter of that growth, will manage that growth? And how do you see the role of economic development playing in that vision?
I think, I'll try to be as concise as possible. I think there's a saying that a rising tide lifts all boats, but a rising tide only lifts all boats if everybody's prepared to ride the wave. And so I think from a city standpoint, it's going to be our job to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to enable small business and the growth that's going to be coming for the future. We have to make sure that we have all of our citizens in a position where they can take advantage of every opportunity that's afforded to them. And so that's going to take, development regulation, if that needs to be more streamlined. It's going to take, what are we doing for small business, not only just small business, but minority business? What are we doing to encourage generational wealth? And there's lots of programs and things that we can help implement. And then there's ways that we can use our regulatory power on development to make sure that growth is happening in a way that's going to be conducive to everybody in the city.
Yeah, great. The next question, and really, I think you can really speak a lot to this, intergenerational leadership. So how do you see yourself in a position as a city council member and how you can help mold and influence the next generation of leaders in Asheville that are going to inherit this region in which you're directly currently making policy and you'll continue to make policy if you're reelected?
My role in intergenerational leadership, I would say, is, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of 2 different generations. I have a lot of folks who have come before me, folks that I've served with before that have a good knack for doing the job of local government leadership. I think one of the biggest things is to really, you have to be open-minded to everyone's ideas. You have to be a listener. You gotta listen more to what folks are telling you, and especially the folks that are younger than you, that are finding themselves in leadership roles, whether they were thrust there or someone encouraged them to be there. I mean, everybody wants to be at the table and everybody wants to be heard. And so the biggest thing to encourage younger leadership is to listen and try to train them and give them opportunity to put their best foot forward.
Yeah, that's I think that makes a lot of sense. And really the third question, when we move on to economic mobility, and you spoke a little bit about this in your first answer, but what are your plans to impact the quality of life for our youngest residents who you just discussed? And how do you see jobs, economic growth as being a major factor in that improvement? If you don't, what do you think is the most impactful?
I think, I'll speak in the current moment, if that's okay, I think, because it's and there's a lot going on with COVID-19. I think right now, um, the economic activity of the United States has pretty much, at this moment, has plummeted in the wake of coronavirus and the pandemic, and unemployment is soared. And I'll probably take a little bit more on this question because I think it's important. Not that the others weren't important, but I want to dig in on this a little bit. I think sort of the plummet of our economy right now is largely due to the result of social distancing policies that were designed to kind of slow the spread of the virus. And the depth and the speed of the decline is probably around the same as the Great Depression. How do we get back into a better recovery section is there's going to be a lot of different areas that we have to take and hold accountable. There's going to be people's household ability and willingness to spend, what we do as state and local government with our finances, businesses, how they are affected through bankruptcies and lower investments, lower human capital aspect. And I'll try to touch on a few of these real quickly, like basically the whole household and ability and willingness to spend. When workers lose their jobs, they're likely to probably drain their savings and increase borrowing. And so when you get through this period, people are probably delaying payments on mortgages, credit cards, et cetera. We've all heard how that works. And what that means is that even once the economy starts back up again, those same folks are probably unable or either unwilling to spend and as readily as they did before. And so for us as a tourist area, that makes a big difference on what our local economy looks like. How can we help that as a state or local government? Basically, we have to be prepared to do some things that we did earlier on in COVID, which was try to shore up some of the small businesses here in the area, folks who didn't get the PPP, that sort of thing, and then look at how we can affect our recovery long term. You have businesses like right now, you have businesses who have had a decline and have had bankruptcies probably, or have actually gone out of business. And once the recovery starts to happen, how can you put them in a position to be more productive? For instance, what can we do as a city for business incentives for people that for businesses that want to move here? You might have businesses after the recovery that might not want to spend money on equipment and all these different things that they would have normally been able to do prior to COVID-19. The loss of human capital, folks coming back to work with a slow recovery. How can you match these people up with their skills into positions of good labor? How can you match these folks up who are coming out of the COVID-19 who've lost their jobs? And so we've got to try to be optimistic in what we do and try to help create the best Z-shape type recovery. I don't know if you're familiar with how that looks. So you've got the GDP, if you're looking at a time, GDP versus time, and the Z-shaped recovery is one that it's kind of, the trajectory is up and then it cuts down and then it goes back up and it levels off again. And basically that's, it bounces above the level of where we were pre-COVID numbers. And that's due to a lot of people, the GDP that was foregone basically during the lockdown, people who weren't spending, who didn't do the spending, who didn't go to the restaurants, who didn't take the trips. When we want a Z-type shape recovery, that's basically where all of that stuff begins to happen again, and it makes up for some of the stuff that didn't happen pre-COVID-19. So we end up in a better position. I kind of rambled on a bit, but I thought it was sort of important to kind of dig into that. So hopefully I didn't use up all my time.
No, you're fine. No, I think that's you're making good points there. So, and you talked a little bit about this, and we're talking about economic mobility, but the fourth tenet of the AVL Greater Plan is a place for all people. And so what are some other elements, the major elements of life that you can influence or invest in as a city council member that will continue that much needed work of lifting up every corner of our community, not just the ones who are already doing well?
I think I worked with April Brown over there where y'all are at with the Inclusive Hiring Partners program. And I think that's going to be extremely beneficial to people in our community, connecting people and families that are basically facing significant employment barriers, give them some good career opportunities and partner them with some businesses in the area, build some relationships through some community partners. And I think there's also an added peer support element to that for folks who may not have the typical life situation as somebody else. And so the goal is to help increase the workforce participation, help increase workforce participation. And so where these folks are getting a job, they're staying on the job, they're looking at all the aspects that make them who they are to this community, beef up their living situation, hopefully, beef up the strength of their family, hopefully, and put them in a better position to succeed. And that's one of those, preparing all boats to ride the wave. So when we do have an economic recovery for the future of this city that looks really good down the road, folks that are in this inclusive hiring partners program can also be a part of that and take a part of that economy in ways that they probably couldn't have before, because there just weren't the services or the community partnerships or businesses coming to the table to line up workers and shore up affordable housing and things like that.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate your championing that ideal and being a supporter of the work that April and her team are doing there. Keith, the last open-ended question I'm going to ask you, and you've probably answered this and talked about this a lot, I know, throughout your campaign, but there's been a lot of discussion recently around reimagining our public safety efforts, or quote unquote defunding the police. So what is your stance on this topic, and what specific items would you change in the police budget, or how those resources are allocated?
Yeah, this is really interesting to me, because I think right now we were going through this whole quote unquote defund the police, and the money aspect it's a piece of it, but it's not the most important piece. I think it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding from a different, diverse group of individuals. It's going to be community, it's going to be local elected officials, it's going to be police, it's going to be police unions, it's going to be state legislatures, it's going to be all of us looking and walking hand in hand together to figure out, how do we actually reimagine police? I think there's going to be an aspect from our chief from, what sort of culture are you promoting inside of APD? The individuals that you want to walk the walk and talk the talk as community police, those are the sorts of individuals that will probably end up being promoted in the future. It's probably not going to be the certain folks who bring a certain culture with them. So I think our chief will be able to do that. I think it's going to take conversations like I've had recently with through the city with the Police Benevolent Association, where we've partnered together to walk forward legislation for civilian review boards, and they're supporting that, and we're supporting them in trying to make all of this a better situation for everybody. This isn't a us against them, them against us. It's everybody coming together and figuring out how we can improve the quality of life for everybody from a policing standpoint. And so how do we change that? We bring communities to the table. We bring the police unions to the table, and we figure out, how do we change the culture? It's not just about the money, of course, but the money provides an aspect of, what are some things that our police are doing now that they probably really shouldn't be doing, and they don't want to do it? And who can we bring in to shore up that mix, and to kind of also quell some of the fear that's going around, that when you dial 911, it's just going to ring and ring and ring and ring. That's not what I want to do with reimagining police. I don't want to get rid of our police, but I do want to make policing better for the individuals who have disparate numbers, systemically Black and brown people in our communities across the country, and how police affect us. And I think we also have to understand that, just like everyone in the community isn't bad, there aren't all bad police. There's a lot of good people that we need to support, a lot of good people that we need to stand behind, but we have to put ourselves in a position to be able to do that. And so we're coming to the table. I'm doing my best right now, working with the chief and some police unions, and trying to really walk into situations and shut up and just listen and process and figure out, okay, how do we make this work moving forward? So I want to be able to support our community, and we also need to be able to support our police. And how we reimagine that, I think people just really want to be treated with dignity and respect, and that goes both ways. And so we have to figure out, how do we do that? And that's a human aspect that we're going to have to open up through conversation. There's going to be some policy that's going to help change that. But for the most part, it's going to be some human aspects as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Well, that concludes the end of the open-ended round of questions, Keith. So thank you for that. Now we get to do a little bit of a game show, quote unquote, style lightning round statement. So I'm going to read off 5 statements, and I'll just ask, and I know some of these issues are very complicated and you'd love to talk more about them than just one word answers, but I'm going to ask that you try your best to either agree or disagree with the statement as I read them. You ready to go?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. First statement is, the city should continue to invest in the Economic Development Coalition.
I agree.
The city should prioritize its budget to ensure essential services first.
I agree.
The city should fund more nonprofits engaged in social justice work, even if it means raising taxes.
Nuance. The nuance. Say that again. Even if it support nonprofits, even if it means raising taxes.
Correct.
I disagree.
The city should prohibit any further hotel development going forward.
I disagree.
The city should redirect resources to assist small businesses during the COVID pandemic.
I agree.
All right, that's it. So that's the 5 questions and 5 statements. So I appreciate your time, Councilman Young, for being here today. I'm going to give you the floor now, give you the next minute and a half to tell people why they should vote for Keith Young for Asheville City Council. And please tell them where they can find out more about your campaign.
Sure. Before I go into that real quick, I broke my glasses, so these are the only things I have to look through, so I'm not blind.
Okay.
I know folks are probably going to be watching. Why does he got glasses on like that? Anyway, why should you vote for me for Asheville City Council? I think I've done a really good job in the last 4 or 5 years here with helping provide a bond project for infrastructure needs, affordable housing needs. We've paved more roads and streets than we have in any other time in our city's history. We've built more sidewalks. We've fixed more parks. We've created more affordable housing than we have in any other time in our city's history. I've been a big part of that. I believe working with the other members of council. I believe I've done due diligence to the folks who have asked me to go fight for social justice, things that are near and dear to my heart, with equity and inclusion in mind. I think entering every conversation with empathy and the ability to listen and try to have a pragmatic view, no matter where people think you should land on a side of an issue just based off of what they think or believe who you are. I think that's going to be really big moving forward. I think we're going to have a diverse group of people at the table that have an understanding of all walks of life, no matter where you're from in this city, in order to move our city forward, because we have a lot of healing to do, not only as a country, but as a city as well. And a lot of the issues that you talked about as far as policing and economic recovery and development, these are going to take folks who have pragmatic views, who can be a leader. And sometimes being a leader is going to be disappointing your constituencies at a rate that they can absorb. You're not going to make everybody happy, but you have to be able to understand that you represent everybody in the city, not just one group of individuals or one mindset. And so I think when people are coming on council, they will realize that in a shocking way, whether they want to or not, that you have to represent the entire city, and you have to try to prepare all boats to ride the wave, to be able to, a rising tide lifts all boats. You got to be able to make sure that everybody can ride that wave for the good times and the bad. So where can you find information for me at? www.electkeithyoung.com. I'm also on Facebook. And I'm, unlike a lot of folks who are running right now in this election, I have a record. So you can see that. You can see the things that I've championed. You can see some of the issues that I've been a part of and a lot of the great things that this city has done within the last 5 years. We've got a long way to go, but we'll continue on.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Keith. We really appreciate you joining us here today and taking the time out of your busy schedule, and best wishes in your campaign. Thanks again.
Thanks, Corey. Take care, man.
All right.